Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this weekend edition of a little bit of Aramaic. And we're continuing in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 9, which starts the prayer of our Father. And just so you can hear at least how it's commonly read in the Aramaic. And again, we don't have 100% certainty on what it may have sounded like in Jesus's time, as he may have spoken this as we have available to us, it would sound like this. Avun devashmaya net kadash shemach. So what we start with this first word, which is avun, translated as father. And so that's where I really want to take you today to have a look at what is the meaning behind that word. We may think we understand it. I thought I understood it until I started looking at this from many different facets, and it has really expanded my understanding of the use of this word. When we go to the Dukrana and we do the analyzing of the verse, we see here the letters are the Aleph and the Beit, which is the root for father, but it also has the second masculine plural ending on it, and that's where you get the avun from. So the word av or ab, you may be familiar with and may have heard this before. The avun is used in this way of speaking as a masculine plural to all of those who are listening. It's kind of a way of speaking to all of us. And so that's another beautiful aspect of this study. What I wanted to share with you is just some other resources here. First, if we go to the lexicon dictionary as part of Bible Hub, it brings up the word in Hebrew. And again, because Hebrew and Aramaic are supportive sister languages, this word av is the same in both. And of course, it's used many, many times throughout the Hebrew Bible, in Hebrew and in Aramaic in the book of Daniel. But what Bible Hub did here, which I thought was very beautiful, it breaks down the times when it's used as speaking to God. And it gives some references here that as I went through them and read each one, it really gave some beautiful meaning. And so I encourage you to go through Deuteronomy 32 and 6, Jeremiah chapter 3, verses 4 and 19. I'll just open up the Deuteronomy 32 and show you just what touched my heart here as it's talking about La Yahweh, or the Tetragrammaton, the personal name of God, the Yud He Vav He, which is God's personal name, and talks about him being your father who brought you out, who established you, who has made you. And if you read through these, I'm sure you'll be very blessed. So please pause the screen here and take some time to look these up, because they're very, very moving. And this is what starts us on this journey of looking at how Jesus maybe wanted us to hear that when he started out this prayer of of Avun, my father, or our father, what the listeners may have heard that are different, that would be different than what we understand today in our Western mindset, over 2,000 years removed from the meaning of that time. And that's where we're going to kind of dig in here today. So looking at our next resource here, we have Jastro's Dictionary of the Targumim, which are the Aramaic translations of the Old Testament. And here, looking at this word for father, comes very interesting here. First, there's a month of the Jewish calendar that's named Av, which I had not been aware of. But the word father here has a number of different meanings that are referenced in the Aramaic. There could be, of course, the father, as we would know as the ancestry of our father. It can also be an ancestor. It can be the one who creates you, which is where we get our term for father. But it also relates to someone who's a teacher, someone who's a chief, who's a leader, who's an author, who's an originator. And this is where we can break apart the times where Jesus is talking about how to speak to people upon this as he's ministering, who should be called father, who should not be called father, and realize that there are different meanings here that have different contexts of being used. And so keep that in thought when we read some of the verses where he talks about using the word father in contexts that relate to our earthly father versus our Heavenly Father versus those who are teachers or masters or chiefs or leaders. So that's another very interesting thought here. Looking ahead to the next page in Jastro's, we see that the word father can also be used for grandfather. And so you have to just be aware of that when you're looking at different biblical texts and try to get the real meaning and not put so much on just what the spelling of the word is. From that, we want to go to another resource that I really enjoyed. It's an author. Her name is Dr. Amy Jill Levine, and she is a Jewish rabbi. She teaches in a Vanderbilt College, or at least she did, and she may have retired now, but she is a professor of the New Testament theology. And it is very interesting to read her books to get a Jewish perspective on everything New Testament. And at least in this part, I wanted to share as you scroll down that historically there have been sermons that you may have heard, teachings you may have heard about the word Abba, sometimes meaning daddy or papa, and sermons talking about how this is showing an endearment and a just a level of address that is very informal, very personable. But she points out that at the time of Jesus, which is what we're really wanting to find out, this term of Abba did not mean something like daddy or papa, and that while looking through the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, you don't see the word father being used a lot. And some people think that or teach that the New Testament brought out this deeper relationship with God, and here the word of father or Abba or daddy is used in the New Testament realm versus when it wasn't used as much in the Old Testament realm. And she kind of dispels that by saying that this term did not have that meaning in Jesus's time. It was not blasphemous for Jewish people to address God as their father, which is why I showed you those other references from the Old Testament that talk about God being their father. And so, again, trying to get an understanding of the time that Jesus spoke. So she wrote a whole passage here about the term of father, Abba, or Av, being used in Hebrew and in the Aramaic, and referencing here. And so I'll leave that on the screen for you for a few minutes so you can pause and kind of read that on your own. But again, trying to look at when Jesus spoke, our Father, was he trying to convey? What was he speaking to? What was he trying to share with the listeners as to what was the message here? Another avenue I want to show you is that there's also a way to look at the meaning of the Hebrew letters. And this I thought was very interesting here, that the letter Aleph has a meaning of the letter all by itself, and it in its primary form stands for God, unity, headship, leadership, which are things we all attribute to a father being the head of the household. But the other part of the word for Av is the letter Beit, which its meaning is the heart, the house, the shelter. So the letters for father fit together so beautiful as to someone who is, we'll say, a representative of God, a leadership of leading his family to a closer walk with God, providing that spiritual authority. And it's over the heart, the house, the shelter. And beautiful that that word brings that into play. The other thing that's very interesting too is when you look at the word for Av, you'll find that when you make it in, even though we attribute it as being masculine, the plural of it is feminine. And it's one of those strange words in Hebrew and in Aramaic that when it goes to the plural, it goes to a feminine meaning. And people have tried to explain this. It's just very interesting nuance, but I believe it also we can gain a clue from that when we look at the name that God uses in the Hebrew Bible of the Yahweh or Yud-He Vav-He, that Yud-He Vav-He has a feminine ending also. It ends in the He. And that is meant to explain is that it brings about the merciful, compassionate, the the benevolent side of God in His name. And I believe there's a dual meaning here for the Hebrew word for father. That yes, they're strong, yes, they're masculine, they're providers, but when you look at the intention of why it's plural and it uses the feminine ending, I believe it was also supposed to portray a very similar understanding that there is a nurturing and there is a compassionate and there's a merciful side attributed to a father that also needs to be on display. And with that, I thought we'll take a look back at the Targumim again and go to the second letter of the Beit in the Jastros. And what I find interesting here is there's a reference of a Beit and an Aleph that has an understanding of father and tied in with the house of Beit and Aleph is the word for house. Aleph Beit is the word for father. And so these words for father and house um, the letters can be rearranged and be interchangeable. And that's the beauty of studying in the Aramaic and Hebrew language is that you can gain these deeper insights, this deeper meaning of these words, and it can have an impact. And so just appreciate you being along for this journey. And as we continue next week in the Avun, Devash Mayan, Kadash Shemach, our Father in heaven. We're going to look at what it means to be, what heaven means here. What is he referencing to? And some neat unpacking of that. So we hope you come back and join us and pray that God will bless you as you journey to find a deeper and closer walk with God through the beauty of these languages that God has given us today. So God bless you all and look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.